Welcome to the AI Security Update, where we discuss the latest in AI and security. In this episode, we're going to talk to someone who's a software engineer, so we'll get the software engineering perspective. This is Carlos. He is my friend from when I interned as a software developer. So we work together, and Carlos has a very impressive background in software development and engineering. So, Carlos, welcome to the show.
Hi, Amal. Thank you for inviting me. So happy to be here talking to you after a long, long time. So nice podcast on. I say yes in the moment you invited me to the show. So thank you so much. I'm a software engineer of 20 plus years of experience, and my career is being along many of the cycle of technology from 2001, 2002, going to the old service-oriented architecture, then landing on the age of mobile, then going to the SaaS. Every 5 years, a new cycle, and finally, right now on the AI.
So, Carlos, can you elaborate a little bit more on challenges you see related to AI security from your software perspective?
Every single highly effective and production high velocity team and enterprise software development team, and needs to be driven by methodology. So you could have in your Scrum teams, you could have extreme programming, you could have Kanban teams, and on top of those methodologies, which are at the level of the team itself, you could have an enterprise level, another top layer, which is SAFe, for example, SAFe Agile framework. That is more at the level of the business decision. So the vision they see across all the ILT doesn't matter which one you explore at the level of everything, right? Every of those things running on any of those IL methodologies, they will follow certain patterns and rules. And the target is to specify as better as possible in a granular level and a vertical slice operation of decomposing a big BRD, all BRD, business required document, defragmented on features, and from features try to slide on granular level user stories. And then is when the engineering teams start working and the cycle of the IL starts.
Thanks, Carlos, for that explanation. So, some of our viewers might not be software engineers, so I'll explain some of agile software development for them, and then you can also add on. But the main reason we're talking about this is because all these AI models, AI, it's all software. So you need to also understand the software development and software engineering side as well. We've had some previous guests talking about as cybersecurity professionals, they need to understand software development and how it works. Because Carlos, as you're aware, we've had debates in the past between security and software developers. And that's a
Okay.
common debate that we see. So for agile software development, there are many different ways to do it. But basically the idea is that the software developers, they work in teams and there's a product manager or project manager that's testing what the software developers create or deploy. And typically these user stories are requested features from customers or users. So then software developers pick one story by one, and then they implement this story or this feature. And then from that, they have a release, maybe every 2 weeks in an agile format. And Carlos, you also mentioned extreme programming or behavior driven development. And that's also something that we worked on, right? So the idea is that in that methodology, it's not just one person coding. It's also another person sitting there next to someone, watching them as they code to test or to correct what they have written. So for example, if I were to type something in and Carlos and I were paired programming, then Carlos could correct me if I make a mistake and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't feel comfortable when, for example, you have a session on your coding agent of your preference. In my case, I use Dev, right? It's an open source and brings to me the basic simple needed for coding agent. Doesn't matter what is your coding agents. LLM models for coding and in general are really eager to give you something, right? And that involves an implicit risk, right? And besides the eagerness, is the one uh, topic that I learned that was obvious from the first time. So 3 years back, which is the context anxiety on LLM models, right? So the learning model is like every single stubborn human that is going to try to convince you that, yes, this is what I'm giving to you is really okay. So if you are not aware what is the correctness of software engineering, so we are being sold out in a terrible decision, in a terrible delivery, and that's another huge risk, in my opinion, right? All those things are, in my opinion, and based on my results, on my implementations, I really handle if we put on top a structure and methodology. And the best way to put it on AI is by injecting what we did before AI. Injected agile on top of human things. Now we have a new team member on the team, on the Scrum team, for example, and that new team member is the agent code. So might be your cloud code, your codex or open code, anyone you like. So that new guy is your new teammate. Say that you need to immerse that guy in the flow of the agility. After applying that approach, I started seeing real results. So the more control, less hallucination.
Thanks. Carlos brought up another interesting point about this agile human teaming. The idea is that we have agile methodologies in software development, but then adding AI or AI agents as a team member to that agile process. And Carlos, could you maybe give one example of how you would technically actually implement this agile AI human teaming process?
Yes, there are many, technically speaking, ways to guide rail your agentic teammates to follow and behave in some way, right? And this is the part when we need to start talking about the standards that are part of the community is widely adapting uh, towards coded agents, right? There is one thing. Let me show my screen 1 second. There is a one standard format, which is the agents.md, right? So we have cloud code, we have coded, we have open code, we have Google Gemini, CLI, we have so many things. And every one of them, they are implementing their own guide railing and ruling systems, right? So, for example, on Cloud Code, which is the favorite one and the most expensive too, I will say every one of them, they have their own guide railing, right? But there is one adoption right now which is driving too much, which is the agents.md. Agents.md is just a simple markdown file that is called agents.md. You put that on the rule of your project, right? And then from there, you could start putting here any of the ruling you want to follow. Every coding agent and agentic platform is adopting this agents.md standard. And that's a simple entry point, right? How to start. It's really effective. You're going to see immediate alignment of the agentic team member.
Yeah, I agree. I think this idea of prompting the AI agent or AI tool is very important because sometimes the AI tool gives you a better output based on the prompt you give it. It's like when you ask a question to someone, if you ask a really good question, then you get the right answer that you are looking for. And so a prompt is a question that you're asking the AI tool. And you need to ask a very good question explaining to the AI tool exactly what you want and what you want it to give you. In programming, we talk about this like when you're first learning programming, you can't talk in English sentences, you have to talk in if-then statements. So same idea here is you need to learn how to prompt or how to question the AI tool to get what answer you want.
Yeah, yeah, you are absolutely right. And you mentioned in there something which is of the challenges I see. So you mentioned given when then, right? That is de facto standard for behavior driven. And that is one way to mitigate one of the challenges I see, which is the vague or ambiguous or undefined requirement, right? Not specific, lack of specificness on the requirements, right? The way to mitigate those unspecified requirements is by adopting one methodology that already works. So the perfect way, the numbers are backing that factual thing. More requirement we are oriented, more specific we are. So more specification driven we are mitigating the challenge. By adopting BDD, is part of the solution for this challenge of lack of refined requirement. engineers ourselves, we need to start detaching from the common commercial pattern, which is the byte coding style. So they guessing around and let's see what happened, and start going deeply on the methodologies. So spec-driven development is a thing that must be our center topic on engineering right now if we want to get a productive AI agentic team member.
Yeah, and I think we even before AI, we were vibe coding in the sense, remember Stack Overflow? So we
Yeah,
were looking up things on Stack Overflow. How do you do this thing? How do you implement this? Especially when you're learning. And, in our work environment, we were switching coding languages all the time, right? So we had
yeah,
different programming languages we were working with. And sometimes you might just look up, how do you do this in Python? How do you do this in JavaScript? How do you do this
yeah,
in
yeah.
Golang? Sometimes it was just hacked together, like, okay, it kind of works. And that's what happens when you start programming or you start software development. And then you get
Yeah,
experience and you make clean code and better readable code that we can maintain better. And I think, Carlos, what you're mentioning is also very important. The idea that even with AI and we try to vibe code, we should actually not do that. And we should use these agile development processes even with AI.
exactly. Yeah. I'm with you 100% on that statement.
So, Carlos, what are some other challenges you see related to AI security?
Coercing the agentic team member is an art, I will say. So putting that guy to follow the rule and behave in the way you want and the workflow you establish on agility with your agentic teammate is an art, I will say. It's the most difficult thing that I have right now because the greenwashing, if you don't detect it, you are getting sloppy things. You are getting quality down easily without any effort and at the lightning speed because the generative content is impressive, humanly impossible to catch and review on time.
Like you're saying, prompting the AI is an art. It's not a defined science because you can ask the AI so many different kinds of questions, but how to get the AI model you're working with to give you the answers you want, that's an art. And some researchers have talked about how you need to prime the AI model before you actually ask it a question. So give it background information, give it context before you ask it the prompt or the question you are trying to get
Yeah,
an answer to.
absolutely.
So, Carlos, my next question for you is based on everything you've seen in the news related to AI and software engineering, is there a current event that you think our audience should know about?
For me, the events that are happening on AI, software engineering itself, and technology folks is the events that happen every single day, every time we sit down on our desk and we start working and uh, like it or not, you need to have an agentic a code platform, one of your predilection, but you need to have it. If you don't have it, you are losing, right? But that same means like having it is a solution, right? We just talk about the many things that are involved and the risks and the challenges involved in the adoption of that agentic thing made and tools. But the event that I see every single day and it catch my interest really into solving is I define it as a ton of speed, no governance, right? The problem with the ton of speed, no governance is like finally stakeholders, they say, okay, now I can run at the speed I always wanted because I have an AI guy that will do everything and will generate everything, and the human in the loop is almost not needed. That is a total error. And it's danger. We need to, more than ever, have a observability, monitoring, and check what is being produced. No governance is a total risk.
I think we're seeing a lot of people they are vibe coding, and it's a way for them to develop these applications and tools that they've never thought about programming, right? So just go on social media, there are channels dedicated to vibe coding, just vibe coding this game or vibe coding this app.
Absolutely. It's a total risk. Positive thing of like coding is like anyone could build something, right? But if you are not immersed on technology and you don't know, you are not able to identify what is okay and what not, the byte code itself is a risk and a real danger thing. So don't, if you are listening right now, don't, we are not biasing by coding. we're just saying you need to have some control, and specifically on enterprise and engineering, need to be heavily controlled and maybe replace it.
Yeah. And everything we're expressing is our own personal opinion and does not reflect any business or organization. And that's true with every episode of this podcast. So,
Yeah.
and Carlos, that's a really good current event. I think we see that with software engineers. They're using AI now every day, whether it's AI agents or they're trying to use like machine learning for analytics. So I think people are using AI every day, and I think it's happening across industries, right? It's not just tech, it's also any industry, I would say,
Anything.
is using AI.
Every single niche on business layers is trying to see the implementation of AI for improving their business in the digital space and even in the physical space. Companies, for example, manufacturing companies that are crossing the realm from digital to the physical object. So for manufacturing, there are a couple startups for improving manufacturing based on AI that are crossing that line. So they are saving tons of time, for example, on designing for moving that thing. And let me show you something. For example, this thing.
Okay.
This is a caddy for a server home lab rack for putting this swappable this. This thing I made it with AI.
Wow, you made this with AI.
Yeah, just for giving one single sample. Because it's a simple piece, right? It's an
Yeah.
easy to build piece. It wasn't easy for me to coerce the AI to behave, to understand what I wanted, but you could do it, right? So if I could do it with my simple 3D printer here, imagine what a company with ton of millions of dollars on budget would do right now. The thing is, yes, physical, real, digital, real, all of them are immersing on AI. And the one that do not adapt the AI as a multiplier, right? I like to say a safe multiplier, right? To be safe multiplier.
Yeah,
If you
safe.
don't, if you don't go to the AI as a tool for that purpose, you're gonna lose on heavy.
The key thing is using it safely and understanding that when you ask it something, it won't give you the right answer right away sometimes. So you need to be able to keep asking it questions or prompt it the correct way to get what you want.
Yeah, that's absolutely real true.
Yeah. And Carlos, another question I have is just think about how everyone is using AI. What is an everyday scenario that you think just any person would be able to relate to regarding what we talked about today related to software, AI, behavior driven development, and adding an AI agent to an agile methodology?
What I see as a everyday scenario is the lack of plain control. Right. The lack of playing control is the situation in which you are just immersed on the generation and you don't plan a way to maintain control what is being produced. You don't have the way to measure the quality of what is produced. So that is the lack of playing control. Right. One more time, is busy on software engineering. If you want to have a plan control strategy, it's immersing the methodology on engineering in your agentic thing, right? And the other thing is like if you don't have the plane control, so for sure you're gonna be in some moment on daily basis. That happened to me. This is what I am so eager on the injection of agility inside AI because it's been the most effective way that I finally control. So I could have a plan for controlling the timing, quality, granular level, specification level, and the output level I want from my AI. Establishing that pattern for playing control. So I avoid one thing, which is the for me the security risk of the human race, which is the ghost decisions. Ghost decisions. So we could say like something more prone to happen on agentic workflows because you have the workflow by nature is a cycle, could be an infinite cycle. If you don't control that thing, if you don't have the plain control strategy in there, you are gonna be in the position of ghost decision. A ghost decision is something that is typically related to agentic, to workflows, right? To agentic workflow. So we have the previous technologies for building enterprise workflows, for example. So you have a BPM, so business process management, which was the let's say the safe implementation standard for building workflows on enterprise level. So you define a business process, then the cycle of repetition, the conditioning, the if then, if I receive this, I execute those things. We were hard writing the decision making. So the logic of yes or no was our definition as part of the workflow. Right now that the decision is taken by the agentic workflow. If you are unable to detect at any moment why your agentic workflow is deciding something, the thing is, those decisions are those things that we don't see, we don't realize, and quite terrible if we don't understand why the agentic platform is taking the decision. How do we mitigate those decisions? A plane control. A plane control strategy will establish the guidelines and rulings necessary. Simple example, for example, while building the specification I'm working right now for spec-driven development on my project, I established something specific, which is you never write on my business required document unless I strictly authorize you to do it, right? Uh, there were a ton of cost decisions of the the coding agent. So especially on Cloud Code using Opus and Sonnet, they didn't really follow orders. And I tell you, so I don't want you deciding to go to write on that place, right? I needed to tweak my methodology for being able to do it. Surprisingly, a cheaper LLM models were able to understand that quite better. And right now I'm using a mini or flash models on Google Gemini because I see better results when you establish your plane control to avoid those gut decisions that were overwriting my requirements every moment. So that daily scenario is the lack of plane control and the gut decisions that will kill you and initiate the third world war any moment if we don't have that in control.
And Carlos, this is something we're seeing in the cybersecurity field as well. Is sometimes you give the AI agent an order and it doesn't listen to your orders and it basically does whatever it wants to do. So it's really important to keep monitoring it and seeing what actions it's taking. Maybe having a log to see, okay, what decisions did it make and keeping track of that. But any other advice on how do you detect when the AI agent isn't doing what you told it to do?
Yeah. I would say in commercial AI, that's more difficult because by general people is saying, get this document, analyze, give me the numbers. Because I need those numbers for paying my customers, my providers for the services. And the AI will tell you, yes, it's $10 million. I write my $10 million check. Boom. How do you know it's $10 million? So that is in the commercial space. That is quite more difficult, I will say. In the case of engineering, right? Again, we have strategies, methodologies, and adapt them. For example, on BDD, we could establish a framework, right? A decision framework and a dev cycle framework, a flow, I would say, sorry, for being able to consider something is correctly done when you pass the criteria I am giving to you. And the criteria is not going to be just only the acceptance criteria, which will be transformed on behavioral driven implementation. Given this thing, if it happens something, I want this thing because the AI will try to the eagerness of AI will try to override that, right? So because they are trying to solve your problem. So but they are inferring many ways to solve your problem. So we need to be really strict and we need to establish a layer. So answering your question, that advice for avoiding these plane control and ghost decision things is establishing a control level, a point of check of control. In my case, I solved that issue by implementing on my BDD acceptance criteria, implementing some acceptance criteria which are flagged as a NNT, a non-negotiable test. The non-negotiable test based on the specifications I'm building is I am enforcing, like it's a test that I decide you to build, right? And you cannot write that test, rewrite that test, never. Maybe you need to tweak some scenarios because if you say, for example, build a login page, in the login page I was adding a user, password, and it's a login page for an ice cream store. What is your favorite flavor? I added my favorite flavor. Obviously, you need to add in the test of the validation of the page that the new field for the favorite flavor of ice cream, but I could establish one specific non-negotiable test that was, I don't want characters, special characters on my password, let's say, for example. So that test, you cannot change it. And in the cycle I defined, so the NNT, you need to have a checkpoint where you see this commit I am generating. Now I have one NNT that changed. That will trigger a review and that will trigger a revert of the implementation it did. Bottom line, non-negotiable test is a specific, critical, chirurgical methodology for stopping eagerness and stopping greenwashing.
Yeah, a great concept, non-negotiable test. And for the cybersecurity people that might be listening, it goes back to kind of role-based access control, right? So you have administrator. Administrator can do some things, and this non-negotiable test, you can think of it like the human administrator says you have to test this, and the AI agent is not given the same privileges or the same permissions as the administrator, and that's something the AI agent has to do. So thank you so much, Carlos, for that term. I think that's something people should think about.
No, it's in there, so let's use it.
And this was a really insightful conversation, Carlos. Is there anything else you want to add?
I would say I have three things, right? So for engineering, there is that myth of the replacement theory. In some way, yes, we are being replaced, absolutely, because commercially speaking, so business based decision, we are replaceable, simple like that. AI works faster than us. We're going to be replaced as code writers, right? You still in there, we're still relevant. Uh, because right now the software engineers we are turning into audition layers, drivers and audition layers. I see right now like we are on the moment of pair programming with a robotic thing. When my robot coding agent is my pair number one, I am driving that guy and more than ever code reviewing that guy. Everything 5 minutes you are code reviewing that guy, learning how to code. It's not true like you need to stop learning code. If you don't learn how, if we stop learning how to code, it's like we stop learning how to do mathematics. You have the calculator right now, but you need to have mathematics, right? So more than ever, if you want to audit AI system, you need to learn to code, right? For engineers, in the topic of engineers, adopt a spec-driven methodologies. You are an engineer, your specialty is requirement, refinement, specification of the requirement. Granular level, AI is going to say thank you for that. You are going to save a ton of money on tokens because every single task, I don't spend more than $3 a day. Being 8 hours, the nearly talking to a computer robot thing, right? If you are a granular level, you are able to use a light or flash or mini. In the case of ChatGPT, mini models. In the case of Gemini, and in the case of the others, so the compact version they have, right? And saving money at the same time. For our engineers, so continue doing your byte coding. It's really nice to see like a people that never were able to build something. Everybody's building something and everybody's happy. But please don't put that in production. Don't put it because there are many things inside. Like a simple, stupid application, as everybody say, right? And I'm sorry for the stupid word, but yeah, simple, plain vanilla application in production have a lot of things that could happen and a disaster could happen, right? And then my last thing to add is more than ever, right? I I am a little bit biased on this. More than ever, even when the business stakeholders, directors, they are trying to not do that. Going back again to the replacement theory for human versus machines, more than ever, we need to be hero. So hero is a human in the loop. So it's a security reason right now, human in the loop. It's not a luxury. It's not a replacement for saving money in a company. It's a need for security and purpose. But the machine itself is not going to measure the purpose. It's going to be driven for an output. It completes the output. It's going to simulate thinking. It's going to simulate reasoning, but doesn't have a purpose. The purpose still in the human, right? Keeping a human in the loop is going to save us for a big disaster on AI. Recently, Anthropic, it just released, they are stopping the release of a Mythos, which is the latest LLM model, which is a Terminator, practically. So it's a Skynet, practically. Google has its own Skynet. They haven't released yet. The human in the loop is our defense layer. If we remove that, your business is going to lose. Simple like that. So, That's what I will add.
Thank you, Carlos. Yeah, I think we have interesting debates, right? Some people are very excited about autonomous AI agents, but I think almost everyone I've talked to, they always tell me human in the loop. And Carlos, you've shared a lot of really great insight about the software development and engineering side for AI agents. Are there any resources you recommend that our audience could learn from to learn more?
So, yeah, so there are plenty of resources right now in the market. I will say too much resources because most of those resources is being AI generated. So we need to be picky tricky right now on the things we select. But I will talk to engineering things. If you want to really go deep level for controlling your AI team members, minimizing costs through implementation of agile methodologies and many other things, accurate label output on your agentics. So adopt the methodology. So agile, any agile methodology, my preferred one is Scrum. My preferred one is Scrum. So behavior for everything. AI is really a good understander. AI understands really good the BDD syntax given when then. It's like a butter for AI. You will save million prompts with one single AC acceptance criteria on BDD. TDD, right? I would like to have a little more expanded on TDD on AI because it's the entry checkpoint. So it's a validation point, like everything is correctly implemented. If you don't have the testing is one thing, TDD is another. So testing gives you the checkpoint. Test driven is the cycle for depuring the generation of the output you are expecting, right? So if you don't have that, it's hard to control the AI for being able to produce what do you want. A top layer on top of those coding methodologies of the spec-driven format of your preference. Have GitHub Spec Kit, for example. Is it what adapted? It's a little bit more oriented to technically writing requirements, GitHub Spec Kit. I don't see like a more tied to a framework for a IL thing, but works. If you are a solo developers, Spec Kit from GitHub, it's perfect. So adapt it if you like it. There is the ears, which is the easy approach for requirement syntax. It's another syntax format for writing requirements, right? Many companies adopt that for writing requirements, but I would say in the case of BDD, is the perfect way to write a requirement, right? Then you have the spec kit. You have one day. It's really funny because its name "Get Shit Done" is another spec-driven, spec-driven framework for syntax and lighting and some operations. And so soon we're gonna release our IL spec. So our specification is called IL spec. Obvious name, so agility and specification format. That's simple. And that is injecting Scrum and the validation, the cycle of TDD and non-negotiable tests for handle your project. And being agile, so open the door to integrate better on enterprise layers. That's the resources I would recommend to people go on today.
Thank you so much, Carlos. I know there are a lot of resources, but at least this gives people a starting point on how they can get started with some of this. So this concludes our episode of the AI Security Update. We'll be back next time with more great conversations.